Hey everyone, how's it going? And welcome to my first non-Jeopardy upload in, 5 years. I'm clearly very versatile. This is the first episode of a brand new podcast I'm attempting. We'll see how it goes. But first of all, I want to tell everybody, because I didn't upload the previous podcast here. So if you liked Fake Jeopardy and you liked our sidekick, the Honorable Judge Thomas Millett, definitely go look up Waiting for Cheri Oteri. I can link that channel in the description. We had an absolute blast last year just doing that podcast, having a bunch of our friends, a bunch of our Fake Jeopardy friends on. We really had a blast, and I really do want to thank Thomas and Calvin and Kate and everybody who participated in that, watched that, had a good time making that. I promise I will have you on this one, Calvin Crockett. I swear to God, hold me to it. I had a really lovely time doing that podcast, but it was more about hanging out with friends, and that I'm doing anyway. You know, we would record an episode and then talk to the guests for another hour after we were done, and it was not really taking the space of something that I really needed a burden I needed to lift off of my family and friends. And what do I mean by that? Well, I am a bit of a TV nerd. I get very analytical about pretty much everything I watch. Sometimes it's a little too much for family and friends. You know, I pause the TV to have some big monologue about a moment that just happened, and my mom and dad are like, great. Now we're 2 hours behind. Please, for the love of God, press play. And there's one show in particular that I can't get enough of. I can't stop talking about it. I am, unfortunately, a geek. And that is Saturday Night Live. I'm sorry. There's every now and then they break some news, something happens in an episode. I just have to talk about it with people, and I'm sorry, my family and friends don't care anymore. So that's why we've started this, a brand new podcast where I can get all of my thoughts and feelings about what's going on with SNL and the season and any new news that comes out of the show in a lovely, safe space. I can get it out of my system and start really connecting with my family and friends again. So what are we going to do while we're here? I know that SNL may not be everybody's cup of tea. I mean, the criticisms abound about Saturday Night Live, especially on social media. You know, it doesn't have the impact it once did. It doesn't hit 100% of the time. Those are criticisms that are very valid, but the problem is, A, they're boring, and B, even the people at the show agree.
Sometimes I'm on TV. You people don't watch it.
Yeah. Everyone at the show talks about the show.
Yes.
Like, you forget that every department, the moment the door is shut, they go, they're like, I got to make wigs for this terrible sketch.
Let's take a look at some of the highlights from this season. Wait, was that it?
It doesn't contribute anything to the overall conversation of comedy nowadays or whatever it achieves. So what I would rather focus on, this podcast is not going to be about, Monday morning quarterbacking SNL. This is what we would have done, and this is what they should have said. What I would rather focus on is kind of the evolution of the experiment, because that's really what the program is. It is an experiment in live production, in comedy, and in live performance. And I work in television. I've had a lot of experience in it. And I think I'm able to provide a bit of a behind-the-scenes perspective, even though I'm very distant from the show. Remember, this is an unaffiliated podcast. But I just feel like I want to have a place to have these conversations, especially on the heels of this landmark 50th season. I kind of want this show to serve as, really selfishly, a diary for myself, to be like, well, what was going on in that moment? A little time capsule of what did we know at that time, looking back in just the evolution of the season. So I think it's going to be an interesting experiment. And there's a reason I don't have a logo up here just yet, because if there's one thing I learned from Waiting for Cheri Oteri, it's that a weekly podcast is a lot. And we're not even really focused on so much recapping SNL so much as we're trying to look forward. We're trying to see what's coming, what's been announced, our reactions to things like that. So the only thing that's going to trigger one of these episodes is an announcement like you've seen before with the cards on the board. Very simple, handwritten. Here's the host, musical guest, and the date the episode is coming out. It's those posts, those announcements that are going to trigger new recordings of this podcast. So with that in mind, please welcome to the first episode of the Corkboard Chronicle. Right? It's fine. It is what it is. I think we're going to stick with this for now. So, but who might that be? Who might that be? I am certainly not going to be doing this alone. Let me tell you that right now. I can barely listen to myself speak. This intro is about probably 4 minutes long, and it's taken me at least 30. So it's definitely not going to be me. I need to dialogue. Well, luckily, one of my very good friends is another expert of Saturday Night Live. She's got all the info. She's got all the intel. She's got the opinions. We really see eye to eye on a lot of stuff, and she brings new things to my attention that I really didn't know about. She's going to be a fascinating person to talk to as this 50th season evolves. So please welcome, for the first time on any of our projects, Caroline Morrison. There she is. Welcome
Hi.
to the Corkboard Chronicle. How's it going? How you been?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. Are you? You're relishing the Eagles' win, I imagine,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. It was a mess, but they did it.
I was going to say, who did they play?
The Packers in
That's right.
Brazil on a soccer field.
I was wondering why I watched that, and that's
Yeah.
exactly why. It was
Just
the big
flipping
special.
all
like,
over the place.
Yeah, that was crazy, but
It's
I
bad.
mean, coming back to the States with a win. So there you go. How's it going? We're fine. We're here. We've been talking about this for about a month or so, and
Mhm.
now we are doing it. We are
We
doing
finally
our
did it.
unaffiliated podcast. Any thoughts about the project? Like, are you excited? Are you
I
nervous?
am excited. I'm excited to have a real purpose watching this season.
That's exactly right. You sit
Yeah.
down and you're like, I'm doing this for a job now, not just
Yeah. Kirby
for-
is paying me.
Actually, there's a bit of a note. You sign this contract here right at the bottom.
Oh, is that what that was?
Yeah, no pay. Sorry to spring that on you now. So Caroline, I have introduced you as a resident SNL expert. I mean, we have these conversations all the time, but the people at home, they may be thinking, what qualifies Caroline, or me even, an SNL expert? And so, if you don't mind, I think we're going to put your skills and knowledge of SNL's past to the test with what I've marketed as the hardest SNL quiz there is. Anyway.
Okay. Have you taken a lot of them?
I have. You've sure you've done it too. Like the BuzzFeed has one, and they'll put out ones, and I'm like, oh, these are softballs. Come on, like, yeah, they're too easy.
Yeah.
So we're gonna put you to the test here. Are you ready to take?
Maybe.
All right. Well, we're gonna try it. Okay. So
Okay.
question one. Which of these pairs of cast members were in the cast at the same time? Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Will Ferrell, Bill Murray and Brian Doyle Murray, Horatio Sanz and Andy Samberg, or Melissa Villaseñor and Marcelo Hernandez? Which of these cast members were in the cast at the same time?
Okay. Can I talk through my thought process?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
I
take all the
don't
time you
think
need.
it was Melissa and Marcelo because he's only been on for a few seasons. I'm thinking maybe Horatio and Andy overlapped for like a year. Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Will Ferrell. I'm gonna go Horatio and Andy.
Okay, that happens to be correct. And yes, they
Nice.
overlapped exactly 1 year. Next, true or false, Kenan Thompson has an Emmy Award for Outstanding Actor in a Comedy Series for Saturday Night Live.
I think that's false.
That is false. He
He
was
deserves
nominated.
one.
He has an Emmy for Comeback Barack.
Okay.
but not for actor in a comedy series. During which seasons, and this is coming with a clip, so get ready. During which seasons was this variation of the Saturday Night Live theme in use? Take a listen. Okay, so let me give you the choices before we go too much further. So your choices are seasons 9 through 10, 1983 to 1985, seasons 32 through 34, 06 to 09, season 20, 1994, or seasons 48 to the present.
I'm going to go. Was the second option like the 2000s?
Yes.
I'm going to go with that one.
Okay, that is correct. Congratulations. All right, which of these Weekend Update anchors did not start on Weekend Update the same year that they joined the cast? Chevy Chase, Dennis Miller, Tina Fey, Seth Meyers, Colin Jost, or Michael Che?
It's Seth.
It is Seth, correct. He was on the cast for like a good 5 years before he
was
took over on
barely
Weekend
in
Update.
anything.
Yeah, exactly. All right, our next piece of media. Which Saturday Night Live producer is the parent of this current writer?
Steve Higgins.
Of course, yeah. You didn't even need the choices.
I forgot about the choices.
That's okay. You instantly knew. Okay, this one doesn't have choices. Which former vice presidential candidate did Tina Fey portray 8 times on Saturday Night Live?
Sarah Palin.
Yeah, that one's a little easy. Again, I wrote this for people at work, so maybe a little harder for them. Follow-up question. True or false, Tina Fey was a cast member at the time of playing Sarah Palin?
False.
Correct. She'd been out a good 2 or 3 years.
She was on 30 Rock.
Point. Yep.
It inspired a whole storyline on 30 Rock.
That's right. I totally forgot about that. All right, so which season saw the premiere of the SNL digital shorts by The Lonely Island? Season 26, which was started in 2000, Season 29, 2003, Season 31, 2005, or Season 33, 2007?
I think it's 33.
Final answer, to
Oh.
borrow a phrase.
I'm going to change my answer. I'm going to go with 2005.
Good change. Good change. Very good change. It is 2005. That was Andy Samberg's first season. The season he overlapped with Horatio Sands.
Horatio, yeah.
Which of these movies is based on an SNL sketch? Here are your choices. Wayne's World, Pop Star, Never Stop, Never Stopping, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, or Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy?
It's Wayne's World.
All right, yeah, that is a question that might be more difficult for the casuals, but yeah. Okay, which of these presidents appeared on the show before they took office? There may be more than one answer here, so here's all your nominees. George H.W. Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden.
Okay, I know Obama did. And I know Trump did. Before they were president, I'm going to go with just those two.
That is correct.
Okay.
The other two, George H.W. Bush appeared by video after he left office, and then Joe Biden appeared by video during Aubrey Plaza's monologue last year. So that is correct. Which of these performers has never appeared in an episode hosted by Steve Martin?
Oh, God.
Daryl Hammond, Will Ferrell, Bowen Yang, or Alec Baldwin?
I'm going to go with Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell is right. In fact, according to my research, he's only appeared in one sketch with Steve Martin, and it was in an episode hosted by Cameron Diaz.
Sure. Steve Martin, Cameron Diaz.
Yeah,
It's a
they
natural
go hand in
pairing.
hand. Exactly. I thought the same thing. All right. Which current cast member did Kirby pass on the street in the West Village on June 18th, 2024?
Oh, you told me about this. It was Ego, wasn't it?
Yes. I don't even need to read the options. Yes, it was her. It was like that combination of like she had said something pretty loudly too. So I was like, wow, I know that face and I really know that voice. And yeah, it was just instant recognition. It was wild. All right, next. Which of these characters uses the catchphrase Simadana? Is it Lisa from Temecula, Granny Crabtree, Nadine, or the Ladies' Man?
Oh, that's tough. I'm gonna go with Nadine.
That is correct. Nadine is the catchphrase in question. Next, which of these cast members said in an interview that he thought his legacy on the show would be being part of the last cast of Saturday Night Live? Was it Will Ferrell, Dana Carvey, John Belushi, or Eddie Murphy?
Oh, I'm gonna say Eddie Murphy.
No, at least not according to my
Ooh,
research. It was Dana
okay.
Carvey.
Dana
Carvey,
Carvey.
because of the whole, the early '80s slump of it
Yes.
all, and then his cast being the one to kind of resurge. His thought process, I think, was like, well, they're not going to let it, slip away again.
Oh,
We're
okay.
probably going to close it out, and
Gotcha.
he didn't. Which current talk show's studio is on the same floor as SNL's studio in 30 Rockefeller Plaza? Is it The Kelly Clarkson Show, The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, The Today Show, or Late Night with Seth Meyers?
I think it's Seth.
It is Seth.
Okay.
It is Seth. Jimmy and Kelly are on the same floor,
Yeah.
different floor from SNL, and then the Today Shows, they got a whole building to themselves. Which of these variations on Live from New York, It's Saturday Night was never said? Was it Live from New York, It's the Eddie Murphy Show? Live from New York, I Don't Need This? Live from New York, It's Saturday Night, but in Arabic? Or Live from New York, It's Jennifer Lopez's Booty?
Were any of those said?
3 of them were said.
Three
yes.
of them have been said. I'm gonna go with the Eddie Murphy one.
Sadly, that is incorrect. Live from New York, I Don't Need This was one that I just made up.
Sure.
But yeah, Eddie Murphy, when he hosted while he was still in the cast, he opened it by saying, Live from New York, it's the Eddie Murphy Show. Will Ferrell said, Live from New York, it's Saturday Night in Arabic as Osama bin Laden. We're just going to leave that right there. And then Tracy Morgan said, Live from New York, it's Jennifer Lopez's Booty, when she hosted in 2001. All right. And our final question, which is simply a bonus question and leads perfectly into the rest of our show. Do you think Saturday Night Live will end in 2025 at the conclusion of season 50?
Is there a way to get this one wrong? Is this a
No,
poll you're taking?
Yes, this is perfect. This is just general feelings.
I think no. I think it won't end.
Explain.
I just can't imagine a world without it. So maybe it's selfish, but I have to believe it won't.
That is an excellent answer. I agree, because even from an emotional standpoint, obviously you and I have stake in it. But then you got to think, okay, it goes away. What comes next?
What are they going to play Saturday nights? Yeah,
exactly. We're too used to SNL as an institution. Now, will it change? Absolutely.
Yes.
100%. It just has to. I don't think. Even Lorne himself has talked about Tina Fey potentially being right for that job. Not necessarily him making a decision in any way. One thing, and I think we've talked about this before, I think, like, even though it will continue, it is going to get pretty much strangled, I think. It's a very expensive show.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult show, and I just know like executives have been like sweating, wanting to cut some costs in that department in particular.
I think once Lauren is gone, there's going to be a little bit of a feeding frenzy
Yeah.
to kind of get some of that money back.
Yeah, I agree. Which I hope that is not true. I just know that like I'm sure Lauren has done a lot of work and just the reputation of Lauren Michaels. He has the trust of everybody that like, no, what we're doing is the way to do it. We got to talk about what happened literally today. As we're recording this September 10th, the night of September 10th. The main story is that Chloe Trost has not been invited back for season 50. She joins Punky Johnson and Molly Carney in that fate, unfortunately. All three. That was just a shocking decision from all three of them. I know there were some lighter moments for Punky and Molly, especially this year, but when they hit big.
Oh, absolutely.
So definitely a shock. And then we've got 3 new cast members in Ashley Padilla, Emil Joaquim, and Jane Wickline. Now, here's the heartbreaking part about Emil specifically. I looked him up. He performed on The Tonight Show in 2022, and at that point, he was 24 years old. I have a sneaking suspicion that we have our first ever cast member who is younger than me.
Ooh.
We don't need to analyze that any further, but like, I knew this day would come, and now that it's here, it's having a very reflective moment.
It stings a little.
Yeah, it does. A bit of a shock. But anyway, that's all the news. What I didn't appreciate or what I didn't understand necessarily, is that usually these announcements come right from the horse's mouth, right from SNL.
Yeah.
Whether it's in a press release, whether it's posted directly to social media. This time, it comes out on Deadline, Hollywood news kind of thing. And then when it was picked up by these other places, they were all only sourcing to Deadline.
Right.
It was just a very confusing, like, it literally had me thinking for a full day, like, I don't know if we can fully, like, take this to the bank just yet.
Yeah, did the Deadline article source, like, anyone? Did it say that it was an insider at SNL?
Not that I remember. They just kind of said it like fact. Like the show has released Chloe Trost and they're adding 3 new cast members. And, I mean, especially with this season being what it's going to be, and the people who are going to want a piece of this season, everybody who's ever walked through the doors is going to want to show up for the 50th season, especially if it's Lorne Michaels' last. I mean, even he has kind of, dusted around that subject. So I'm shocked because I didn't think there was going to be any room for a featured player this year.
Even 3, because they only brought in 1 last season. Right.
Which was more of a reason to think like, okay, maybe they're kind of
winding it down. Yeah.
Yep, for sure. So yeah, I mean, like, what was your first reaction of like the Deadline of it all, the article?
Well, my reaction was mostly I felt bad for Chloe because it kind of seemed from her statement about it that she was a little caught off guard by Deadline being the ones to announce it and break that news to everybody. She didn't get to kind of do it in her own time.
Yeah, exactly. And also, this is another issue I had with that article. The first edition of it said that she left. She made the decision to go. And then when she posted about it on Instagram, obviously that's not what happened. Like,
right. And she was like, they didn't ask me back. And I was like, well, how terrible that you have to then like I don't know, cop to that right away in this kind of rushed statement. And yeah, the whole thing was just a little weird.
Right. Which is what made me, like, the fact that, she wasn't asked back and the article says she left, immediately we're thinking about it called into question the entire thing,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely spent a whole day going like, well, this is interesting, but I'm not going to believe it.
How reliable is it? Yeah.
Right. And then, so that Deadline article was posted Monday morning. It wasn't until this morning, Tuesday morning, some NBC departments started releasing it, saying like, here are the new cast members. And there was a second blog post that said like, meet the new cast members and here's what they've worked on in the past. So all of that came much later. It has this stink on it that like maybe it wasn't supposed to happen like that.
I don't think that it was, and some poor intern was up all night trying to write these bios for these new people.
Exactly, because maybe NBC as a whole wasn't even ready. Like, we don't know how much of a surprise this necessarily was. So, yeah, I like feel awful for Chloe. She was like magnificent from the second the orphan, which I'll show a clip of it at the end there, but the orphan Cassidy with Timothée Chalamet as the moon, I'm like, oh, we're seeing something. Like,
I've been seeing that all over Twitter today. Everybody on Twitter is kind of shocked by it. To speak for Twitter,
Please do.
Everybody on Twitter thinks so.
Twitter shouldn't be trusted to speak for itself. But yeah, it just like everyone was pumped to see what she had next because like she had that hook of we need a vocalist. It's time for Chloe. Which every cast member in their early days kind of needs to be like the go-to person for something. And then they flourish, once they have that hook. And a lot was coming for her, quite frankly.
I'll be interested to see what she kind of pivots to next. But I'm sure she'll land somewhere. It's just kind of a bummer.
Oh yeah, for sure.
A weird choice.
And so when we were talking about this earlier, you said that it reminded you of something that happened with Chris Redd starting on the show, and I wasn't familiar with this.
I was trying to remember. I heard this on a podcast that he was on, and I can't remember if it was. I don't remember whose podcast it was. But he did kind of talk about how, I don't think it was Deadline, but it was one of those type of websites, announced him as a new cast member a full season before he actually got on the show. Like he just auditioned, I think. And he had maybe almost gotten it, but they just reported that he did. So then he had to go and be like, hey guys, didn't get it, not on the show. Me. And then the next season he did get on. I don't know why, and I don't think he said really why it took another year, but yeah, it was like fully reported news that he was on the show when he just wasn't.
That's that's so crazy, that like something like this has happened before where like something gets out that might, the show might not be ready for, which it doesn't completely surprise me, but I feel like they've been so good about that stuff not leaking.
Yeah.
That for it to happen, especially before season 50 is like, oh man,
That's the thing I think that really shocks me is it's such a tight ship just in general, but you would think with it being season 50, they would be keeping everything really calculated in how they're rolling this stuff out. And this seemed a little bit sloppy.
Yeah. It's just very interesting. But like, now as of, let's see, what time was this tweet posted? 4:25 p.m. SNL confirmed the 3 new hires. So it was a good 48 hours of chaos probably over there at NBC, but like what we landed on was 3 new cast members. I hope they get the room to do what they need to do this year, but you can't really know at this point in the season.
I guess.
at episode 0 that we're at right now. As the new season begins, we're starting to get these little details. Obviously, the cast is a huge blank that we weren't sure about. But something that my like nerd brain immediately goes to is that, like, you know, we have this new look. There's a new logo that's been released, which will probably come with a new intro, a new opening, you know, new theme song, everything that comes with. Is this the year that we finally get a new home base set?
I think no. I don't know. I don't see them changing it. Even though it's 50, I think it's such like an iconic image. I don't know
At
that
this
they'll mess
point.
with it too much.
Yeah, I mean, it could go either way. I think if, you know, if this is truly Lorne Michaels' last season, which again is going to be the question mark that covers the entire season,
Yeah.
it's probably not wise to change it right now if the whole show is going to change come season 51.
Right. I think if they're going to do more after this season will need to kind of be look at how much you've loved this for 50 years. Look at all the iconic things it has produced. And I think that's probably part of that.
Yeah, it
And
is
then
like,
Lorne will just take it home with him when he leaves.
yeah, exactly. Set it up in his house. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it is like it's quite literally the home base for everybody on the show, for the people at home. It's like when the show starts, that's what we see. And this will be the 22nd season with that set, which is by far the longest they have kept a home base set. But I remember being surprised that they kept it for 40.
Yeah.
Because I was like, okay, we've, you know, at that point it had been 12 years, and you know, kind of thinking about refreshing and rebranding, and I was like, well, maybe a new set comes with that, and it didn't. So yeah, clearly it works for them, which is probably the main reason to keep it.
Yeah.
You know, if you make too many changes, you have to think about what that means logistically, of like building sketch sets and, you know, movement of equipment, you know, that kind of thing. That
Yeah, it's a whole new process. You gotta set the band up different.
Yep, exactly. Sound probably takes a hit. Like it's all kinds of stuff. So now that I'm talking it through, yeah, that's kind of that would not be a good move for them before season 50. Everything is coalescing this season, which has been obviously covered to death. I mean, it's season 50, could be Lorne's last. Election year, right? Coming off of like NBC holding the Olympics, which always like ends up in a huge thrust for the whole network. Like, I mean, we know who our main candidates are now, and I know like who's playing our presidential candidates. Debates tonight, actually. We got to wrap this up soon. So what I think of a lot is there had to have been nobody happier in. There were a lot of people like that thought it was a good decision, but there had to have been no one happier and relieved in the world than when Joe Biden stepped down from the ticket, because they were definitely trying last season to find their new Joe Biden, because obviously James Austin Johnson is booked. He is going to be Donald Trump. And I never saw anybody that I was like, that's him, that's the one. And I think that definitely weighed on the mind.
I think that if he hadn't dropped out, we might have had kind of a James Austin Johnson situation where they bring somebody in mostly for that purpose.
Right. Like how Jim Carrey did a couple of years ago, which he would have never done that again. I feel like
no.
I did 6 straight. I'm good forever. But yeah, so you know, Lorne Michaels singing the praises. Maybe he was, when they were talking about like the Democratic operatives who like met privately with him, maybe he was one of them.
I wouldn't be shocked.
Maybe he got in there to Joe Biden's office and was like, look, on top of everything else, I don't have anybody for you. Like, you know, if you want this to go smoothly, we need Maya Rudolph back.
For the good of the country, we need Maya on the show every week.
Every week, yeah. So yeah, really landed in a good spot in terms of that casting. But now we have we have Kamala Harris, or we have Maya Rudolph. We do have Kamala Harris, but and James Austin Johnson. The vice presidential ones will be interesting, but because this debate season is so different, that Commission on Presidential Debates format where you do like standard town hall, vice presidential, and then another like standard presidential candidate debate, that's out the window. Like all we're gonna get in terms of a Kamala Harris Donald Trump debate is tonight. So I don't know how that affects like the cold opens for the start of the season, when previously you had 4 sketches pretty much already written. It's like it's whatever happens in the debate. Now your only debate is going to happen in 3 weeks, 2 weeks by the time this episode comes out, probably. What happens? What happens then? Do they even need to necessarily cast a vice president before they're elected?
Yeah, I mean, unless something really insane happens, they might not need to really audition people for that.
Right. I really hope they play it like remember when Melissa McCarthy first showed up as Sean Spicer?
Oh, do I?
First of all, life-changing, formative moment
I
of the
just
show.
rewatched a bunch of them the other day because I just needed to see it.
It was the shock of because they start that sketch when they cut to the podium. They start on a wide.
Mm-hmm.
So as Melissa McCarthy is coming in and like telling people to sit down and shut up, you don't even know who it is. You're just like, I can't quite tell, but like I feel like I know that voice. Yeah. It was like me with Ego on the street. Like I know that voice. Why do I know that voice? And then they take that close up and you can hear it on the broadcast. Like the crowd was thinking the same thing. Like, wait, who is this? Then we see it and people go absolutely nuts.
Settle down! Before we begin, I know that myself and the press have gotten off to a rocky start. All right.
Now, obviously, they beat the cameos to death later that season and the following, but that was like the first time they cast someone completely in secret, gave them this pretty like intense character to do, didn't market it at all. At least there were, when Alec Baldwin played Donald Trump, there were commercials made to tease the season, and that didn't happen. So there could be something like that where we get this shocking like casting that no one really thought about, which would be kind of fun.
I think because it's a big season, I'm sure that there will be a good amount of that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. People just stopping by because they want to. Like not even. I don't even need to play a role. Just
got anything for me to do this week?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be really fun. Okay, so now I need to toss it to you because there was something very interesting that came across your eyes, your social media, a couple of weeks ago that you were talking about. How'd you see it? What did it say? Like, what are we talking here?
So
what was it?
It was Dumois, if you know it, little Instagram gossip, blind item submission type of account. I think it's kind of bad for culture, but every so often there's something interesting, something that catches my eye, and I'm like, ooh, that's for me. And it was basically just a list of kind of rumors about the season, casting changes, hosts, things like that.
Okay.
So
do you have it? Do you have it on you?
I do have it.
Okay. Let's hear it.
Okay. So I'm going to read it just verbatim. I didn't write this. You might as well.
Yeah. Big disclaimer.
You're going to know from the first phrase that I didn't write this. Here's the tea on SNL's 50th season.
Wait, that's not you? That's not your voice?
You know me. Here's
Always talking about tea.
Here's the tea, Kirby. Marcelo, Michael, Chloe, and Devin are all being promoted to regulars. So there's already this person was a little bit out of the loop somewhere.
Slightly, yeah.
Lauren is hiring 3 new featured players, one of whom has a commitment to Second City and will be joining in January. I don't know if that means that whoever it was got out of their commitment to Second City, because they didn't really say, like, one of these people isn't coming till January.
Yeah, there were no specifics on that, so
we'll
yeah.
See. The premiere will be hosted by either Glenn Powell or Nikki Glazer. But the musical guest is confirmed to be Chappell Roan.
I don't hate it.
I'm there. I'd be happy with a Glenn Chappell.
It'd be great.
I would like it.
What describes the summer better than
really
Twisters and and Chappell Roan?
That's what it was about for me.
Yeah.
Other hosts confirmed for the first half of the season include Dylan O'Brien, because he's in the SNL movie, Natasha Lyonne, Kyle Mooney, and Simone Biles. Then it says musical guests include Eddie Murphy. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that was a little bit of a typo.
It had to have been, because
I would love it. He does have that one song.
He has a song?
He put out a pop song in the 80s.
Oh, yes. I did know about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on, wait. Editing trick. Here's a little hit of that. Okay, we're back. Continue.
Eddie Murphy is in negotiations to host the Christmas show exactly 5 years after he came back. Taylor Swift is in talks to be his musical guest. That's all I can say right now.
They're very tight-lipped. Yeah.
We're pressing them for more, and they won't. They can't.
Nope. I'm tied to secrecy. After this point, I'm tied to secrecy. Yeah, that makes it sound like somebody said, like, "Hey, we need you to reach out to Dumois and
leak a little bit of this, but nothing else.
Nothing more, okay? Don't leak episode 2, for God's sake." But yeah, a lot here for sure.
Yes.
And now that SNL has confirmed what they've confirmed today, September 10th, this might have a little more credence, except for the Chloe aspect.
Yes.
So,
it seems like they maybe kind of know what they're talking about, but also some of it I think is pretty, like the host stuff, like, I don't know if that's really insider information.
No, it's like good
that they
guess.
Want Glenn Powell.
Right, yeah. Like, of course, there's a good chance, you know, I put him in the Ryan Gosling, like, Jake Gyllenhaal style of cast member where, like, he's probably going to be great. You know, it makes perfect sense. But yeah, the commitment to Second City and will be joining in January. I just, you know, I don't think that's gonna. Basically, reason why I bring this up is it's an interesting conversation piece, if nothing else. Even if nothing else pans out, it gets people thinking. But yeah, like the Second City thing, I think you're right. They would have either not announced the Second City holdout, or they would have said, like, this person's not actually showing up. Because, like, you know, when Pete Davidson steps away, or Cecily Strong steps away for a couple of episodes because of a prior engagement, they're not announcing that, but also they're an established role on the show. Actually, they might have announced both of them doing that.
I want to say, I remember them saying something about Cecily, because I knew about it going into the season that she was going to be missing for part of it, but I don't know about Pete. But Pete was so in and out, I felt like.
Right. Yeah. As he felt like it, probably how that kind of fell. But for someone doing that early, but getting announced now, I think like that's probably.
I think
that'd be such a weird decision.
They just wouldn't have announced that person. I don't think they would have just done it for the first show of next year.
Right. Is there anybody that like you're thinking about for musical guest for host that you would like to see that you think would end up showing up?
Yeah, so I made a little list.
Oh my God, you got a list.
A handful of names that I was thinking about.
Yeah.
So for host, I do think Glenn Powell is going to be in there. I don't know if it'll be the premiere, but I think if he wants to, you know, of course they're going to let him.
Yeah.
The Dylan O'Brien one, they're gonna have somebody from the SNL movie, especially since it comes out, I think, the day before the season starts.
Right. Yeah.
But I would personally prefer it to be like Rachel Sennett.
Yes. I was
Or
just going to say
Lamorne
her.
Morris, because he just got nominated for an Emmy. But, I don't know that Dylan O'Brien is the one. But
Right.
And then
Yeah, Rachel Sennett's a good call. And also, like, there is a connection to Io Adebari, who is now in the family. So
yeah, she's kind of in that little. I'm sure she knows a bunch of writers at the show. I think
for sure.
it'd be good. And then this is my dream. Andy Samberg is in a movie that also comes out the day before the premiere. He's in a movie with Kate Winslet, so I'm kind of hoping that they get Andy to do it
Oh, interesting.
to
That would be
promote
really
his
good.
movie. But
That's
wishful
perfect
thinking
on
maybe.
2 levels. He's got a
See,
movie,
yeah,
and digital shorts, big part of the history of the show.
yeah. I think he would be a really good season opener. Whether he'll do
Mhm.
it or not, I don't know. Maybe he's sick of the digital shorts because of their podcast. He doesn't want to
hates
talk about
podcasts.
it.
Yeah. Podcast, the
But
lowest form of recorded media. No, that's very interesting. And like similarly, I feel like I don't keep up with movies coming out as well as I keep up with like albums necessarily. Like we have a laundry list of people who could show up
Yeah.
to SNL this year. I mean, Lady Gaga's got an album coming out at the end
Oh,
of
and
this year.
yeah, and her movie.
And the movie, oh my God, the
Yeah.
movie.
So
We might get a host musical guest combo. Like the last time she was Tom Hanks's musical guest. She has hosted it before though.
yeah,
And then Beyonce, I mean, sky's
that
the
would
limit for
be
season 50.
yeah. It is season
Um,
50. If she's gonna come do it, it would be now.
Yeah. Chapel Roan, like we said.
Mhm.
Charlie XCX could come back for like
Charlie,
a 5th
yeah,
time or
yeah.
something like that. Was she on last year? I don't believe so.
I don't think so. I don't think she had anything out last year. Maybe the season before.
I think I need to research that on the fly because
We need a producer, somebody
yeah.
to do research.
Marjorie was our stenographer / producer on the last one. We can hire her back. She's not doing much. She was the musical guest for Oscar Isaac hosted episode
Right, because she
in
was
early 2022.
She was in the meatball sketch.
She was in the meatball sketch, and she was originally supposed to be with Paul Rudd for Christmas. Then that whole thing got canceled.
Oh right.
That was
I forgot
the
they
like
canceled that one.
Delta variant
Yes.
Christmas episode.
Yes.
So that would be wonderful. And like again, if we're talking about things that define summer, I think
I mean,
Brat's up there.
yeah. I think when we were in New York visiting you, every restaurant we walked by was playing a song off the album.
Yep. Hey, they know what's going to bring people in,
Worked on me.
But I was talking about the movies and how like I don't keep up as well with that. Kyle Mooney really puzzled me when I saw his name on that list. And I think you told me he had a movie, and I'm like, he's got a movie? Like Kyle Mooney's got a movie coming out? Y2K, I think it's called.
Yeah, with Rachel Zegler, who also she could host.
An option? Yeah.
Yeah, because she's got Snow White coming out, but maybe not till next year.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. But especially if that's a summer release, we're still looking at eligibility for season 50. Yeah, that blew me away. And honestly, the movie looks fantastic.
It does.
And like, it releases in December. Like, I could see him being in early December, like hosting choice.
I think it'd be fun, and we might get a little Beck cameo if Kyle's hosting, which I'll take that every time.
Yeah. Now here's what's funny. If Kyle Mooney hosts, here's my other prediction, is that something is going to happen. A football game's going to run long. There's going to be bad weather, and the entire episode will end up, say it with me, cut for time.
No.
I just feel like it would really bring his whole tenure on the show full circle.
I think so.
To have his entire episode
the whole
delayed.
thing.
But we won't wish that on him, but it'd be funny. It would be really funny. I have one more musical guest prediction.
Okay.
But I want to save it.
Okay.
Because here's the thing, Caroline. We've got I feel like this show is going to lean more on like what's coming in the future. as we know, it's the Corkboard Chronicle. The only thing that cues this whole show, is a host and musical guest announcement. So it's going to be very forward-looking. But to get the full context of season 50, which is what we're aiming to do, I feel like we do have to look back just a little bit. And in order to do that, have you heard of Drew Gooden?
Yes.
He's a YouTuber. A couple of years ago, he went through and he decided to watch one episode from each season of SNL to basically kind of debunk the rumor that like SNL's so bad now, it was only good back then. It's a very interesting video. I highly recommend it. And hey, Drew Gooden, if you ever want to stop by the podcast, more than welcome. There is a certain perspective that he shared that I found very interesting and that I want to bring to our like recap portion of the podcast. Here's what he said in his video.
It's kind of like being a fan of a sports team. They're not going to win every game. Some seasons are better than others, and it sucks when you see your favorite players move on to a different team. But no matter what, I almost always find something to root for. There's nights where it's like, that episode was kind of rough, but Kyle really shined, or Chloe had those 2 really funny sketches. And that's part of why I enjoy watching it.
It's less about like sketch to sketch, that one was really bad, no one knows what they're doing. This show is more about, in my opinion, the experiment of like comedy,
Yes.
live performance, and live TV. It's ever evolving. Sometimes it really works and really creates a moment that like lasts forever, and then sometimes it doesn't. But looking at it from that sort of analytical, like that sports analogy of sometimes your team wins, sometimes your team loses, is really interesting to me. And I think we can bring that to our recaps. So what we're going to do here is we are going to do a very rapid fire recap. And here's how it works. We're going to go through sketch by sketch of every episode that has happened since our last episode. That's how we're going to do it for the rest of this run. And we will give each sketch or segment either a win or a loss. Those win-loss totals will go for the whole episode, and then we'll give the entire episode a win or a loss, depending on how the ratings shook out. And then we'll look at the end of the season and go, how did we do? What's our record? Is, 10 wins, 10 losses. That's a draw, but we had a good time. Who knows? Who knows what this miraculous season 50 is going to bring? Obviously, we don't have an episode to actually do for season 50 right now. So to demonstrate this, we're going to be covering the most recent episode, which was Jake Gyllenhaal and Sabrina Carpenter. Are you ready, Caroline?
I am.
It's going to be fast. Okay. So here is Jake Gyllenhaal and Sabrina Carpenter by the numbers. First up, we've got a message from President Donald Trump. I thought this was a little bit dry-ish for the most part, but James Austin Johnson never fails as Trump. And
that did get me, so I'll give this a W.
And Veep is very close to our hearts, I know. Next up, we have the Jake Gyllenhaal monologue. Catch up after the monologue was Dad Has a Cookie. What'd you think?
I liked it. It's that classic, somebody gets way too intense about something that is not that big of a deal.
The cycling sketch.
Couple funny things. Bowen mispronouncing porcupine. That did get a laugh from me, but overall it didn't really.
We've all been burned by companies like this, and even though this doesn't match what they were going for in the ad, everybody looks really good.
Except for Gyllenhaal's mohawk thing.
Portion of Weekend Update. So Colin and Michael's specific parts. I gave it the W, obviously, jokes from, and I can't wait to see how they escalate that for potentially the last season of this Weekend Update pairing. Gave it the W.
Yeah, I gave it on the show once they kind of started doing that. They were just locked in.
Yep, for sure. And then the Weekend Update commentary, all we got here. Yep, I love it. I love it every time. And then Southwest Airlines, this was a very similar sketch to one Kieran Culkin did a couple of years ago. I sadly preferred that one, but it was fun to know that eventually Bowen was going to come in as some ethereal, all-powerful character.
And ends up the floating head. I think I prefer it to his Southwest god or whatever he was supposed to be.
All right, next up we got the NYPD press conference. I know this had to gone over huge in every film buff's house.
Oh yeah.
I didn't prefer it. I think it didn't land in the audience as much either. Those are deep niche references, and in an audience full of Sabrina Carpenter fans, it might not have landed how they intended.
The slideshows in this sketch were basically like someone had gone into my IMDb history and just kind of taken them all down. I could name all of those character actors for you, but ultimately it was just a PowerPoint presentation with a little bit of John Hamm in it. So yeah, I gave it an L. I just needed a little bit more.
Yeah, yep, I agree. And then finally, that is the Jake Gyllenhaal Sabrina Carpenter episode. Total record for that particular episode: 9 wins, 3 losses, and 1 tie. And that's how we'll kind of keep track of the progress of season 50. So, what'd you think? How did we? I guess it wasn't as rapid as I thought it was, but like that's a lot to cover, you know.
A little pithier if we're doing 3 episodes at once.
Yeah, exactly. That might end up becoming most of the episode. Yeah. Very bizarre seeing this episode like in the year of our Lord, or the month of our Lord, September, because this was I mean, what an insane summer that we had in terms of like politics. There was no vice president. There was no like even verdict on the hush money case at the time. And,
right.
Like it was very bizarre to revisit a time like that when it's just developed so much in the last.
It was a little tough. It was very topical. I had to really reach back in my brain and be like, what was happening? What are they talking about here?
What was life like in May of 2024?
Why is Heidi Gardner holding that dog? What was that about?
Yeah, it was so great. And obviously, like you said, Jake Gyllenhaal, ready for Broadway. He's 3 for 3. I looked this up. He is 3 for 3 in songs, singing songs during his monologue.
I would never disparage him. We have the same birthday.
Oh, wow.
So I'm a little biased there, but he just wants to sing. But he keeps having to make his action movies, but all he wants to do is, he just wants to sing. He just wants to do Sondheim. Win a Tony, probably.
Yeah, he shows up in Lauren's office Monday morning and goes, "Don't make me sing." Little reference for you there. But yeah, the tough part of this episode was obviously seeing like, Molly didn't get many moments, but like especially Punky specifically singing "End of the Road," not knowing at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, that was tough on the rewatch for sure.
It's always a bummer when they kind of decide to leave over the summer or don't announce it. We don't really get that like final moment for them at the end of their season.
Right.
Nice,
even if it's something as small, right? Even if it's something as small as like they cut to them during the good nights, a big close up, and everyone's giving them a hug, and that just doesn't get to happen if you end the season thinking, "Well, see you in September." Yeah. And so that was tough. So I did say, overall, just a technical note, because I get really into like live TV coverage. I do it personally, professionally, mostly sports, but like when these studio shows, I just nerd out on this kind of stuff. It seems like, and Liz Patrick, the director of SNL, did win the Emmy for directing for a variety series yesterday or day before, Sunday. And so, but seeing like, there's definitely, I think this season, I feel like they were taking more of these like live photography risks. What I'm speaking of specifically is like that direct overhead shot in the Beautiful Girls sketch. I was like, my jaw dropped a little bit when I was
I was even surprised by it, and I don't know anything about that stuff, but it was such a different thing to see on that show.
Yeah, so I mean, who knows if like we get a little bit more of that. We go a little nuts with the camera coverage.
It'd be fun.
I mean, it always looks incredible, but now they're trying these things that we didn't even think necessarily possible. And so so I do have 2 more predictions.
Okay.
One of them involves a musical guest, like I was talking about earlier. I think Sabrina Carpenter could come back. I think she could do 2 appearances in the same year.
I think, I mean, if they want to get really bold and just have her be the musical guest for the premiere, just kind of bookend the summer,
Yeah,
because that's what her music kind of did,
yeah,
and
for sure.
she's got the songs for it now.
Yeah, because she had Espresso, she had like what she performed in May. It was
Hmm.
Espresso. It was
She did
is it called
Feather,
Feather? Yeah,
Feather, and a little bit of Nonsense,
Into
because she
Nonsense.
has to.
Right, and then so really she only had one from this current album, and
Right, and
so now,
she's got two singles since then that she could
right,
do, plus the rest of the album.
and
She wants
yeah,
to
the rest of
just
the album's
cherry pick
fantastic.
stuff.
There are so many like candidates on that album specifically for live TV performance
Oh
that would
yeah.
go over absolutely huge. And then so I think I need to make it a tradition on this show that like anything that's shameful for me to admit, I want to put back here. I don't want to say it out
Okay.
loud, but like my my last prediction, which unfortunately I'm very sure is going to come true. I'm putting it up now.
Okay. No. Surely not.
I can't rule anything out,
Oh, I hope not.
unfortunately, with the Hawk Tuah girl.
She's at a podcast now.
She's got a podcast, she's got like talent representation, and I think that is where, because if she's got representation now, if they were so bold as to like approach her for,
Yeah.
they might be like, this was the comedy moment of the summer. Why wouldn't she be on a comedy show? I'm
Oh,
so nervous. I'm
I
so
sure hope
nervous.
not. I hope that if we're getting anything from her, it's like Chloe Fineman playing
Playing her.
her in something.
Yeah.
I don't know if I need to see the actual girl.
We'll see. The only time will tell. I do think if we make it through episode 1 without Hawk Tuah girl, then we've made it.
I
Then we
think, yeah,
can,
because it doesn't have any legs past
right,
the first episode.
exactly. We can sleep soundly. Unless something happens on her podcast and she goes viral.
Oh,
That's the only other way.
fingers
Um,
crossed.
yeah, so that's again, these are things we don't want to see that I'm too ashamed to say out loud. So no one take that screenshot and go, ew. Yeah. So yeah, anyway, so we have reached the end of the SNL portion of our show, but we are not one-trick ponies, Caroline.
No.
Even though we are SNL experts, there's more than meets the eye. I want to talk a little bit about other things that we may have been consuming lately. Would you mind if I started, or would you like to go first?
Absolutely go.
Thank you. I just finished, finally, after 5 years, Fleabag.
You're a little
Have
late to
you
the party.
I'm so late to the party. Here's the problem. It's 2019. I'm painting a word picture for you. It's 2019. I'm a huge fan of Veep. I love nothing more than Veep.
Mm-hmm.
And Julia Louis-Dreyfus is set to break the record, the all-time record for performance Emmys
Mm-hmm.
for a single person.
Yep.
And it's coming. It's like a shoo-in. Veep hasn't lost at the Emmys ever.
Yep.
This is locked in. I start watching the Emmys broadcast and I go, I don't like what's happening here. Fleabag wins some of the like smaller lead up awards. They win writing.
Mm-hmm.
They win directing. I'm like, there's still room. There's still room for Julia Louis-Dreyfus. There was no room for Julia Louis-Dreyfus that night.
Nope.
And I took it as a betrayal. I wanted to watch Fleabag. I really did. But I couldn't bring myself to do it after the heartbreak I felt not seeing Julia Louis-Dreyfus take home that record-breaking Emmy. So it stayed on the shelf for a long time, and I built up a grudge with Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who I love dearly, by the way. It was wrong place, wrong time. I finally watched Fleabag, and I can definitively say that Emmy was primarily for season 1.
Interesting.
I think because you see this a lot. You see like these sort of makeup Emmys,
Yes.
right? Where
Yeah.
like someone maybe wasn't nominated at the time, or there was a better candidate a previous year. I think season one blew my mind. I liked season 2. I liked the tension of it. And the whole, like, you know, finally she has someone that she knows is the one.
Yeah.
And she can't have him.
Right.
They ultimately cannot make it work. But season 1, that reveal, and spoiler alert if you have not seen Fleabag, that reveal of Fleabag being the reason behind the drastic actions of her best friend.
Right.
Fleabag was the other woman that we'd been hearing about all season.
Yeah.
That slept with Boo's boyfriend. And so in that moment, we as the audience, she's talking to the camera the whole time. She kind of sees us as a friend, like a trusted, that this is the only person in her life at the end of season 1, basically. And there's a little joke about that in season 2, where she's in the therapist's office and she's like, "You don't have any friends?" And then she turns to the camera and goes, "Well, kind of."
Yeah.
She kept that from us for a reason, you know? And then when Claire calls her out about it, the camera work even shifts. And there's this tension in the camera work, our eye on the scene, where like it's almost angry. It's like, wait, you told us, like, you left that out.
We trusted you, and
and you broke that trust. And then she's like walking around that kitchen, and everywhere she walks there's another camera. She can't get away from that judgment that now the audience is putting on her. That was extremely unique. I'm not like a storied expert on anything, but like that stuck with me, that moment.
Yes. I haven't watched it since the second season came out. I think I waited and then I watched both seasons once the second one was out. I don't have the same eye for camera work that you do. So I was definitely more of a season 2 person.
Okay.
Which I think is probably the majority of people. I think
it is too.
What got people into it, at least, you know?
Right.
Just that whole love story there, and that heart-wrenching scene at like the bus stop. I watch that like once a month just to feel sad.
Just to feel something.
Just whenever I'm like, oh, I feel sad, I'll go watch this just absolutely heartbreaking scene between these two people. That'll fix it.
Why do you do this to yourself?
I know. So maybe I need to revisit season 1, I think, because I've seen season 2, I think, a few times, but I'll have to revisit season 1.
Yeah, I was a huge fan. And well, the other reason I think that the Emmy was more for season 1 was because season 1 wasn't eligible. It premiered in the UK and then came to Amazon much later. From what I've seen, and
Okay.
I might be butchering this, but and then season 2 was an Amazon original. It premiered kind of simultaneously, from my understanding, on UK television in here.
Okay, so maybe they just nobody submitted it at all for season 1.
I think, it was either no one submitted it or it straight up wasn't eligible because it didn't first air in America.
Yeah,
you know? So I don't know how all that stuff works, but like that was kind of my theory on it all.
Was that year the picture of Phoebe Waller-Bridge smoking, holding all her Emmys?
That was 2019. Yep.
That was that one. Iconic picture.
Oh, absolutely. Wonderful. Again, I took it personally, but like now I've had some perspective, you know? But yeah, anyway, so that's been my journey with Fleabag thus far. Snaps all around, I guess.
Very good, very good.
Sharing our feelings. So now, Caroline, it's your turn.
Okay. The media I've been consuming lately, and I know it's not supposed to be SNL related, but nothing I watch is truly separate from SNL. There's always some way to get there. So this is The Other Two, excellent Max series. I think it was
HBO at the time.
I think it was HBO when it started. I don't know. Written by 2 former head writers at SNL, I believe.
Yep.
Chris Kelly and Sarah Schneider. Just an excellent does a little bit to fill the 30 Rock shaped hole in my heart. Every so often
Yeah.
a show comes along that kind of tides me over between 30
Mhm.
Rock rewatches and this one. It's just like joke.
Yep.
And it's just
And
social commentary.
niche. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's stuff that I'm like, oh, I don't know anything about that, but it's so specific that it's just, it must be funny.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
yeah, I don't work in entertainment, and a lot of the jokes seem to be for people who do.
Uh-huh.
But it's just a good time. I've watched it a few times now, but
Yeah.
I just went through my latest rewatch, and I think it's just genius. And I wish that it had gone on longer, but
Yeah, was it like that? Did the last season air during COVID? Is that kind of what
it was
happened?
right after COVID, maybe.
Okay. Oh, they do have a January 6th joke.
Yeah, because their brother,
Uh-huh.
Face Dreams, who's supposed to be a young Justin Bieber-esque. He puts out his second album, but he's a very bad singer. So the joke is that they actually orchestrated the insurrection so that his album would get kind of ignored.
To detract from.
Right.
No one's talking about that.
His agents actually made the whole thing happen so that no one would talk about how bad his album was.
Which is insane.
Oh, it's
but
perfect.
Also genius.
It's
Yeah.
perfect.
That's wonderful. I think I'm in the early parts of season 2. So that's definitely one I have to finish because I am hooked. Like, everyone's wonderful.
The fun thing about that show is it ends up, I think, mostly being, well, it's about this family and this relationship, specifically between the two older siblings, but it's also a lot about Molly Shannon's character.
Yeah, it
She
is.
becomes a very big part of it, which you don't think she's going to be in the beginning, but it really becomes about her.
Yeah,
It's
which is
really
great.
fun.
I will never turn down more Molly Shannon.
Oh, she's so good in
Ever.
it.
Yeah. Well, Caroline, we did it.
We did
An
it.
hour and 14 minutes into this particular recording, and that's even without the intro. I'm going to shoot the intro later. But hey, I think this is. Let me go back to my title card here. I think this is going to be a blast. Truly,
I think it's going to be fun. Yeah, even if it's
I
just
kind
for
of
us.
look at it. Yeah, I kind of look at it like, this is a big season. It's a show I enjoy.
Yeah.
If nothing else comes of it, at least I kind of have a sort of diary of my thoughts during it all.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
And it's interesting looking back at the time capsule of like, this is what we knew at the time. I mean, this could all change tomorrow. SNL could come out tomorrow and say, "Oh, our cast list wasn't quite right." Anything can happen, and we're talking about it in the moment. And I think that's just an interesting little capture.
I have a gut feeling that we're getting the first 2 episodes announced by the end of this week.
Oh, 100%. We're going to have to meet like this again very shortly. So everyone stay tuned for that. I think like Chloe Trost was I think she was the youngest person on the cast, even below Marcello, if not, they're only a few months apart. And so it's like these people are our age now. I couldn't personally imagine even getting that job, much less like losing it like that.
Yeah.
But again, like just really, this is someone who's going to do big things. I saw a lot of people on Twitter comparing her to like Jenny Slate.
Yeah.
Didn't have other people who didn't have the best luck on the show, but like eventually found their own way. So even though it might be a little melodramatic, I do want to end this episode with the time that I think all of America said, we got a hit on our hands. So we'll see you when they make that announcement, I guess.